Happy New Year! It is January and it's time to start thinking about standardized testing. In particular, today I'd like to talk about SAT subject tests. Now, not everyone at Sugar Bowl Academy will be taking the SAT subject test, but for those of you that are, I figured it would be helpful for you to start planning when you might want to take those tests. So a subject test is to emphasize a strength in particular subject. You can take a subject test in English, math, science, history, and Spanish. A subject test is a multiple choice test, and it would take 1 hour, and the highest you can score on it is an 800. So if you take a subject test and only score a 500 or a low 600, it may not be the score you want to send to a college, because it is to send to a college to really emphasize that you are really strong in a subject. So a score of a 700 and higher is extremely favorable to send to admissions. For those students who are wanting to take a subject test, those tests will be given on May 4th and again on June 1st. Those are the remaining dates for this school year. Now, not every student will take a subject test for college, and there are very few schools that still require a subject test for admissions, or usually two. Caltech is one of them. Georgetown happens to be another one. So it's very important for students to check the requirements for when applying. Now, how do you study for an SAT subject test? Many students use the good old-fashioned books, so an SAT 2 math subject test book. Here is a history one, I believe, but I figured it would be helpful to actually listen to what the students say they've done to help with taking an SAT subject test. Take a listen.
Hi, Callum here. Karen asked me to talk to you guys about a few tips to help me study and succeed on SAT subject tests. So I guess the biggest thing just right out of the gate about subject tests is that they're nothing like the material you learn in class. The one that I studied the most for was the math level 2, and the thing I was most shocked by when I was studying for it was just how different the content is than what you learn like in pre-calc or in calculus. It's just completely different math. So the thing that I think everybody has to remember when studying for subject tests is that they're really hard, like for everybody, even people who are really good at math already, and they require a lot of work. But the key is just to not give up. That's something that took me a little while to get my head around, because it was just such a daunting challenge, but you can do it. One piece of advice I'd give to juniors is start studying this summer. That's something I did that really helped me out for the math 2, was that I started studying in June, and then by the time the August test date came around, I was ready to go, and I just didn't have to worry about it during the stressful part of my senior year. So that's a key piece of advice I'd give to a current junior. And another thing that really helped me out was these Barron's books. Because even though the Math 2 is already incredibly difficult, they actually make these books harder than the real test. So it's a really psychologically damaging experience, but I'd highly recommend it for if you really want to get the job done and you're willing to, suffer a little bit to get there. They really crank up the difficulty, so if you want an experience that'll make you more than ready for the test, I'd highly recommend it. And just to point it out, Karen's got a bunch of these books all in a row right there. So they're an open resource for juniors to use, and you should.